to drive your career, not just ride along? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm Simone E. Morris, your host and career strategist, here to give you the roadmap. Each week, we're cutting through the noise with strategies, stories, and insights to get you back in control. Your career clarity starts right here. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone E. Morris, and today I'm excited to have on the show Steve Jaffe, a San Diego native who turned a journalism degree from San Diego State into a remarkable 25-year career in advertising and marketing. You might know his work. He helped create the iconic "What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas." I hope he'll talk about that in the show, audience. Anyway, in this episode, Steve shares how professionals can reclaim power, purpose, and confidence after job loss. From emotional recovery to a practical strategy, Steve will break down the Grieve, Grow, and Go framework from his book, The Layoff Journey, and show us how to transform setbacks into the start of something stronger. I so love that. Let's get right into Steve's journey of owning his career. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So Steve, how did you get to where you are in your career today? Give us a little backstory. I know I did the
Yeah,
intro, the bio, but give us a little backstory on your
sure.
journey.
Yeah. So I spent about 25, 30 years in advertising and marketing. Started working at ad agencies. I was a media guy, so I was responsible for all the media planning and buying, which one of the highlights of my career was being fortunate enough to do media planning and buying for the Las Vegas What Happens Here Stays Here campaign. I worked on that for the first 5 years of its life, from day one, from campaign launch, and it was a tremendous experience. Um, I parlayed that into client side marketing positions, so in-house marketing jobs. And then, kind of the third chapter of that part of my career, I moved over to consulting, freelance contract roles, and pivoted into product marketing for startups. And now in this stage of my career, I've become a writer, and I've written about my journey through those 25 years, as it pertains to my 4 layoffs. So marketing tends to be one of those industries that's heavily impacted by layoffs, and I can attest to that. And I learned a lot through those layoffs, and I wanted to be able to help others. So I wrote a book with a roadmap and a real practical guide to navigating the stages of grief.
Yeah. I love that you know the number, the when you have your resume, it's like make sure you've got quantitative data to put in there. There's like 4 layoffs. But before we get there, let's go back a little bit further. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Oh boy, I wanted to be a lot of things. I wanted to be a spy. I wanted to be
Oh,
Batman. Yeah. For a
that's
minute,
fun.
yeah, I wanted to be a chef. But I'll tell you what, the lasting thing, I wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to write, and I was told, people thought I was a good writer. People told me that they thought that was a pursuit that I should um, um, go into, and it always eluded me. I didn't have the subject matter that I wanted to like dedicate myself to writing a book about. After that fourth layoff, a light bulb went on, and I said, I've got the subject matter. And
Mm.
then from there, I just sat down and started writing, and it kind of all poured out of me. But writing was something I always wanted to do, and I dabbled in it here and there, and certainly my major in journalism gave me a good foundation for writing
Hmm.
effectively.
Hmm.
And now that's not to say I still wouldn't mind being a spy or Batman, but maybe I'll get to that at another point in my career.
Nice, nice. So with the journalism, I want you to think about being in the driver's seat and the concept of being the driver or the passenger. And so when in your career did you realize that you were in the driver's seat?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say probably the last maybe 10 years of my career. Up until then, I very much felt like, I was working for others.
Mm,
There were companies I was helping build, and I was building my resume, but I wasn't building my own thing. Um, what I was building was like a resume and like titles on a business card. Um, about 10 years ago, when I pivoted into consulting, working for myself, and doing a lot more like self work, and building a more well-rounded person, um, um, I think I began to be in that driver's seat, both professionally and personally. And then that grew everything from there. I think things started to flourish. And I
mm,
would say now I'm very much in the driver's seat of doing what I want to do, how I want to do it. And it's liberating, I will tell you that. Because
mm,
I'll never get laid off again. My fourth layoff was my last layoff.
no.
I won't be back in corporate America, being subjected to, all of the whims of what goes on there.
Yeah, yeah. It's a part of your journey that led you to reclaim the writer's position in your career. So, as you think about your time in corporate America, your time as a consultant, your time as a writer, and putting it all together, how do you define your formula for owning your career? How would you define it as, what are the key ingredients that one needs to be successful in their career?
Well, I think first and foremost for me, what worked was adopting a learning mindset, feeling like I can learn from what life throws at me, feeling like I can accept life on life's terms and the challenges that come from life, not as setbacks, but as learning opportunities. So ultimately, like those layoffs, allowed me to learn and grow professionally and personally in a way that, um, there's some self-discovery, that I think needs to be done in order to be in the driver's seat. You need to be in touch with what is important to me, what are my values, what is my North Star. Um, until you understand that, you'll never be able to align those things. So, one of the things that I talk a lot about is the pause that a layoff presents is a good time in somebody's career to do that introspection and to examine what are my passions, what are my values, what excites me, what brings me joy, and understanding if the career path that you're on is in alignment with that.
Mhm.
If it's not, it might be an opportunity to pivot and find that alignment. Um, I do believe that people are more successful when they're doing something that's in alignment with their goals and their aspirations and their passions and their values and their North Star. Um, I think that's the first step for me that opens that door, and understanding, I really wanted to write a book. What was stopping me? The only thing stopping me was myself.
Mm,
And I needed to take that risk. I needed to bet on myself. Um, I needed to, frankly, be willing to fail. Um, and, that can be a scary thing, but it can also be a scary thing to continue doing something that you don't love and that you're
yeah.
not happy with and doesn't fulfill you.
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that it can be as scary to stay. Because
Mhm.
I've been there. I've taken a sabbatical from my time in corporate America to get that pause in and then gone back in like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, this is insightful. A lot of exploration of passions and things like that. That's how I found executive coaching. But I went back in, and you're right, when you get to that pause or you get that opportunity, that exit opportunity, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a the opportunity to
Right.
innovate. I love what you're saying, and this show is about betting on yourself and being in the driver's seat. Completely
Right.
agree.
Yeah. Sometimes a layoff can be like a get out of jail free card. You
Mm,
might be really unhappy at that job. You might have a
yep.
terrible boss, right? Sometimes if you get laid off, look, I'll never say a layoff is a blessing in disguise, but
Yeah.
it can present opportunities for you and to you that you can turn into your advantage. And that pause, that reset, that pivot
Mhm.
is one of those things.
Yeah. Tell us about these four because I don't want to leave this interview without knowing about these four pivotal moments and then the framework or how you emerged and said, this is it. That I'm
Yeah,
not going back.
yeah. All right, I'll bookend it for you. I'll give you
Okay.
number one and number four,
Okay.
because they're very different, and that arc is what the arc of the book is, and it's my journey. Um, Layoff number one. I was living in San Francisco. It was the spring of 2001. I was working at an ad agency, and things were going great. It was a great agency, great client. We had success. Very happy. I had just gotten married. It was literally and figuratively the springtime of my life.
Mm.
And unexpectedly, I was called into a conference room one day and told, "Thank you. The client is cutting their budget. We're cutting staff, and you have 5 minutes to clean out your desk."
Wow.
And I was completely caught off guard. I had bought into the myth of meritocracy.
Mm.
I had thought if you worked hard, you would be met with success, right? And instead, I was met with a pink slip, and it was very, very difficult for me to reconcile that. Um, Fast forward, it's summer 2023, and I'm working at a small SaaS startup, and they have layoffs. About 20% of the company was laid off. And I find that for me, it's like water off a duck's back. It doesn't affect me. I have it all into perspective. And the rest of the 20% that I was laid off with, some of them were very early in their career. Some of them, it was their second layoff that year. And I wanted to pull them aside and tell them, look, it's going to be okay. These are the things that I learned over time and after a series of layoffs that helped me recover and navigate the stages of grief that you're about to go through. And that was the light bulb moment where I said, if I turn this into a book, I could help that 20%, but I could help a whole lot more people too.
Mm.
So the lessons that I learned over those years and after those layoffs are what the book is comprised of. It's a roadmap, it's a practical guide. There are exercises that people can do at the end of each chapter that help them navigate this really difficult time, but turn it into something where at the end of that journey, you're positioned well for success. So when you do go on that job interview and when you do land that next job, you don't carry this baggage with you.
Yeah, I bet that you can use this even if you're not laid off too, because some of this is being proactive with preparing yourself. And I'll speak for myself. I could have done a better job of being in the driver's seat, but like you, I culturally was raised to believe do that hard work and the rewards will come. And I believed that for a very long time. And until I got to the place where I aligned, like you said, to my core values and I knew how to negotiate in conversations about my career. I was just allowing things to happen to me. So when you talk to me about this model of grieving, you can be in a position and in grief
Yeah,
because you overstay your welcome. So I imagine your resource, your book, could be valuable to people who are still in corporate America and out of corporate America in jobs where they're concerned about being laid off because we're living in a time where Amazon just laid off 30,000 people, right?
right. Yep,
Recently.
yep,
So it keeps happening. So
yeah,
while you are enrolled, I bet there's some tips in the book that could help people also to be
yeah.
proactive.
Absolutely. It's a great book for someone who thinks a layoff may be coming because it kind of tells you what to expect and some things to do correctly as you're exiting the company. It's great for career coaches that are helping people manage layoffs. And it's great for people in HR or outplacement services to gain a little perspective, a little empathy, and to have a resource like roadmap at their side that they can use if needed as they're coaching people. So um, it has many uses, and I've heard from readers and reviews from all of those scenarios. Um, the stages of grief themselves kind of transcend um, any of life's traumatic events. So they were created from a behavioral research woman, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, as she was studying terminally ill patients, and she found that this were the stages that they went through. It was then discovered, friends and family of those that were passing went through similar stages. And then, any of life's traumatic events, like a divorce, like a layoff, as the human condition, this is what we tend to go through as we process grief. Now, they don't all come all at once. Some of them don't materialize for some people. Some days, maybe you feel all of them or a few of them, but it's good to know that it's normal, and this is a path that you can expect to probably experience, um, which doesn't make it feel as like caught off guard or somehow I'm feeling these feelings and I shouldn't for some reason. Like it's totally normal to be in depression, for example, when you lose your job. That's normal. That's expected, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that helps give some normalcy to the experiences.
Yeah, I think sometimes we can align our job. Not I think I know that your job can become such a core part of your identity. And when you lose that, it's a tough space to be. Tell us, are there any tips in the book that help you to be in the driver's seat?
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorites is uh, the idea after a layoff that you've done something wrong, right? And you think about what could have I have done differently. Somehow we take this idea that a layoff is like a negative reflection on you, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not. A layoff is a no fault termination. Now, if you're fired, that's a different story. But layoffs aren't firings. Layoffs are budget exercises that companies do when they're going through difficult times and they need to redirect revenue to their bottom line. So they cut headcount. Um, in that situation, you're carrying this shame and embarrassment and guilt. But I invite people to let go of that. That's not a burden that you should be carrying. Um, but it's easy to take that and look backward and think about what could have I have done differently. Um, the key to moving on and moving forward is to change that perception. And instead of saying, what could I have done differently? Think about what can I do next? That
Mm.
puts you in the driver's seat and that keeps you from looking backward and changes your perception to look forward. Once you start looking forward, you can move through this. Um, but I invite people to let go of that shame and guilt.
Mm. Well said, well said. I wonder if you were to think about your career body of work, what's a title that would define it? I don't know, you don't want to be defined by the layoff journey. So just thinking about all the experiences and lessons you've had along the way, perhaps
Yeah,
another book,
yeah.
what would the potential title be?
But probably creative strategist. I've always been a creative thinker,
Hmm.
um, and I've always been very left brain and right brain oriented. I've had a balance of both of those throughout my career, almost equally, which is unique. So that strategist part of it is that analytical, data-based part of my brain, where I can come up with a creative idea, but then I can evaluate it analytically and see if it's going to actually work and drive whatever the outcome is desired. So, um, And I would be proud to be called a creative strategist. I feel like that's not many people are able to balance equally left brain, right brain, like creativity and analytics.
Yeah, as I hear you talk about the four layoffs, I'm thinking, wow, let me try to think about the whole career and you know specifically what's happened and you're able to synthesize the data of the four and birth this book,
Yeah.
this resource that's going to help so many people. Thank you for sharing about that framework. Tell us the framework again, please. Remind our listeners the framework.
Yeah. So I'll briefly give you the stages of grief. There's 7 of them. And they are, now I'll list them in order, but again, they don't necessarily materialize in a linear way. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, reconstruction, and renewal. And
Mhm.
the way I think about these is the first 4 are the real heavy emotional. That's when you're carrying a lot of baggage, denial, anger, bargaining, and depression. Um, as you move through those, though, the light at the end of the tunnel is the acceptance, reconstruction, and ultimately renewal.
Mm.
The renewal is kind of where you rise like a phoenix from the ashes and you like reclaim your story, you reclaim all of your talents and skills and experience. And on reflection, you're not what's printed on the business card.
Mm.
You transcend that. And when you go and you interview for a job, and someone asks, "Well, tell me about what happened on your last job," um, you can speak about it in a way that it's not the elephant in the room. You
Mm.
can speak about it very simply and clearly and move past it and not give it any more oxygen than it needs. Um, and then when you do land your next job, you're not bringing this baggage into it and you're setting yourself up well for success. So that's the framework that the book is written around. And I talk about how I manage those stages, how they materialized after different layoff experiences, um, anecdotes, stories, experience, as well as statistics and research and other people's examples and stories of how they managed it. So it's some storytelling along with like again data analytics and it's uh, designed to be like um, a life preserver that you can throw somebody who is drowning in the midst of a layoff. It's not a long, heavy read. It's very digestible and it will get you through this difficult period quickly.
Yeah, I imagine this is so timely. So many people need this resource. So thank you for sharing about your book and this resource on the show. As we begin to wrap up, I have 2 questions to ask you. One is about your thinking of risk and
Hmm.
how you see it, how you frame it for advancement in your career. Can you talk to us about how you've taken risk in your career and your viewpoint about taking risk?
Um, so it's funny that you asked that question. I write about that in the book, and
Oh,
I in a way attest some of my layoffs to being probably um, taking too many risks. Some of the jobs that I've taken, whether they were at startups or they were new, like experimental titles and roles in the company, were there was a high risk and there was a high reward. Um, and I guess I have a high tolerance for risk. I like the idea of like a proving ground, and I like the challenge of it. I also like kind of the competition of it, if you will. Um, but I believe, especially in an entrepreneurial role, like there is a lot of risk in doing your own thing and making a go of it and trying to be successful. So I believe if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to take some risks. Nobody that built something from scratch, nobody that bet on themselves was risk adverse.
yeah, yeah.
What is your thought? What is your opinion? Are you high risk, low risk tolerance? Where's your What's your belief on that?
It's interesting. It makes me think about the financial planner because when you go into a meeting with your financial planner, they always ask you about risk so that they know the portfolio. And usually when you're younger, the risk tolerance is higher. And as you get older, you sort of make it lower and lower. I am an entrepreneur. I've been in business for 10 years, so I'm totally receiving every nugget that you're sharing is applicable to me, that I've
Uh,
had to get comfortable with risk. But when I was in my career in corporate America, I could have done a better job of embracing risk because I remember being asked to move. And I was so fixated on the location and family that that wasn't something that I wanted to do. But I think back and like, wonder what would have happened if I had done that. So
right.
I think my appetite for risk is more now as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, because quite frankly, you don't have a choice. You
Yeah.
have to acclimate or accept, acknowledge risk to be able to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Do you have any parting words of wisdom to share with our audience before we close out this episode?
Um, if you're going through a layoff right now, you have my empathy, you have my support. Um, I would invite you not to ignore the pain or minimize it. Embrace it. It's okay and it's normal. There are a lot of people that have gone through this. About 40% of all Americans have been laid off at least once in their career. Not everybody talks about it openly. And if you are able to share with others, you'll probably find in your network somebody that's been laid off that can offer you some support and comfort. So drop the shame and embarrassment, talk about it, network, reach out. It's not a time to be alone. This is a time to find some support and comfort.
In community. I love
Yeah,
that. I
right.
love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, you have to get out of your own way because you can be in your own way wanting to sequester yourself. So thank you so much, Steve. Please tell our audience how they can stay in contact with you, how they can get the book if they would like to do so.
Sure. So you could go to my website. It's thestevejaffe.com. You can learn more about me, learn more about the book. You can download a free chapter. And if you like what you read there, you can go to Amazon, just type in the search bar, the Layoff Journey. You'll find it on Amazon. We can also connect on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram. I also have a blog on Substack. So I'm in all the places. And if somebody is going through a difficult time, I'm happy to connect and offer support and resources.
Awesome. I feel like saying just Google Steve Jaffe and all these choices will come up, but we'll also put them in the show notes. Steve, thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating the space. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're very welcome.
That's it for today's empowering episode. I'm Simone E. Morris, and I want you to remember that you are indeed the architect of your career. Share this episode if it sparked something in you. Subscribe wherever you listen and find more resources at SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. Keep practicing career ownership, and I'll be right here with you next week for more transformation.